broken or security mounted, right? Then you get over here, turn signal, full wave flasher, marker. Oh man, I forgot to tell you, that's a marker light as well. Okay?
So, can we say after that one, I would do the same on this side?
Yeah, you can say that. If you think you got everything. Okay? Remember, he has to hear about all the lights to get to one point. Okay? So, yep, I'm going to talk about this the same as I did that right there. So next is I'm going to go to my engine compartment and we're going to check the unique item. That's I don't want you up there. Remember, do as I say, not as I do. Okay? You notice I didn't put my foot nowhere. I didn't put it on the so-called bumper, whatever there. That thing's as flimsy as hell, and you got a sensor back there, so I know I don't want to damage it, right? So you have your alternator. That's the only thing you're going to check on this side. So the alternator, bolted to the engine, or securely bolted to the engine, right? Alternator itself is not cracked or damaged. Any wires that I see are not loose or missing or frayed or exposed, right? You can even say no signs of arcing or anything like that if you want, okay? But it is belt driven, so I will tell them it should be no more than 3/4 of play when pressed. No cuts, tears, or frays on the belt. Remember, I'm looking for damage. Yes.
How much is 3/4?
Not that much. Okay. 3/4 of an inch, at least a quarter left. Okay, so now we go to the left side or driver's side. Okay, so everything, remember, is going to be down the driver's side of the vehicle now. Okay, so we'll start out with our coolant reservoir. Fill between minimum and maximum. Not leaking. Okay. Water pump. Okay, securely mounted to the engine with bolts or bolted to the engine with bolts. You can see some of them. There's some more up in here, all along in there. It's not cracked or damaged, but also not leaking. You tell me it's belt driven, no more than 3/4 of an inch play, not cut, torn, or frayed, right? Engine oil. That's a little yellow T-handle right here. All you need to do is tell me that you would inspect it to make sure it is between minimum and maximum. Okay, you don't need to pull it out. Just tell me, hey, I checked that to make sure it's between the minimum and maximum, or we're adding full. Okay? If you like, you can say if it was below I'd add a gallon, right? Other than that, just tell me it's between minimum and maximum. That's good enough. All my lines and hoses. Now, I suggest you touch them all. Okay? Just touch as many as you can. And tell them I'm checking all my lines and hoses. Clamps and fittings should be tight. No cuts, pulls, abrasions, no leaks. Okay? You can always add no audible or visual leaks. Okay? Thereby, I'm checking to make sure I have no leaks on the ground, correct? Okay. My power steering reservoir, same as my coolant. Fill between minimum and maximum, not leaking. Okay. My air compressor, that is right there. Okay. So your air compressor mounted to the engine with bolts, gear driven, not leaking. Okay, gear driven, not leaking, and mounted to the engine with bolts. Okay, your steering. So we're talking about the steering box and the steering linkage. This part's not on her chest, but it's your steering shaft, securely mounted if you like, but no credit for it. My steering box. Okay, mounted to the frame with bolts, It is not cracked, damaged, or leaking at the box, fittings, or hoses. Okay? Your steering linkage. You have the pitman arm, the drag link, steering knuckle, tie rod. Okay? So you can name those parts and then tell me that they're not cracked, bent, broken, securely mounted with nuts and bolts, castle nuts and cotter pins, and that the joints and sockets are not worn, loose, or damaged. Or just point to those 4 parts, tell me you're checking your steering linkage, and then repeat what I just said. Okay? So there's 2 ways to do that, right? Okay. And either way is good for credit. Okay? Suspension. We are going to check both the front and the rear spring mounts. Also where the leaf spring connects to the front and rear spring mounts. So my front and rear spring mounts mounted to the engine with bolts, not cracked or broken if you like. Leaf spring mounted to the front and rear spring mounts with bolts. There's a bushing at both ends, not damaged or missing. The leaf spring itself, not cracked, not bent, not broken, not loose, shifted, missing. Okay, sure as hell better not be missing, right? U-bolts. They're bent, but they're not cracked or broken. They're not loose, missing, and the bolts are tight. Shock absorber. Mounted top and bottom with bolts. Nothing bent, dented, or leaking. Okay? Make sure you guys come out. That's why you got to practice every day on all our trucks. Look them over. Okay? Just being here is one thing, but you need to get out and visually look and see a little bit better. Brakes. This particular model truck, which is what you will be tested on, has disc brakes on the steer axles. Your drive axles will be drum brakes. Okay? So you do not have a push rod and slack adjuster that you can inspect. Okay? So you have a brake hose. Fittings are tight. No cuts, bows, abrasions, or leaks. You have a brake chamber and clamp. Securely mounted because it's bolted. Brake chamber and clamp is not cracked, not bent, not broken. There's no loose or missing clamps and not leaking. Okay? There is no push rod for you to see to inspect, so you don't have to worry about that. No slack adjuster here either. But you have a rotor and disc pads. Okay? Instead of the brake lining, remember, you don't have a brake lining that would be on your drum brakes. You don't have a brake drum because now you have the disc like on your car. Okay? Whereas your drums are back there. Okay, just like on a car, maybe got just on front, drums on back, right? Okay. So you would talk about the pad just like you did the brake lining. All you've done is change the name. Okay, and you're going to tell me it's not worn excessively thin. You can tell me it's not worn dangerously thin. You can also tell me that there's no less than 1/4 inch, right? The brake rotor, you're going to tell me the same as you would the brake drum. All we did was change the name again. Okay? So it should not be cracked, bent, broken, no welds, no missing bolts, and then free of debris, grease, and oil. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. So now we're going to check our tire and wheel assembly, right? So here we have the tire. So we're going to check ICD. Okay? Inflation, condition, and depth, or however you want to abbreviate it. So my tire, I'm going to check the condition, sidewall, tread. So sidewalls and tread and sidewalls should not have any cuts, bulges, or abrasions. The tread should be evenly worn. Tread depth is no less than 4/32. So remember, no less or minimum of 4/32. Okay? The inflation I would check with an air gauge or tire gauge at my valve stems that's not broken, got a cap on it, should be no less than 100 psi or within factory specs or manufacturer specs. Okay, however you want to word that last part, doesn't matter. My rim, okay, yes, I can check this side, but I'll definitely looking at this side, not cracked, not bent, not broken, no welds. Okay. Lug nuts, make sure you call them lug nuts. Just touch them, rub your hand around them. They're all securely mounted, or they're not loose or missing, not cracked or damaged. No rust or silverness indicating that something is or was loose. Okay. My hub seal is back here. Okay, so I just run my hand around, nothing leaking. All my bolts are tight and present, and the cover is not cracked or damaged, just to make sure they know I'm checking it. Okay, this plug is not the seal. Okay, that is where you would check to make sure that you have adequate level or full. Okay, that's all that's for. That's A. Okay, at which point you would go to your coupling, right? Fifth wheel part and your hoses. Okay, then you do your in cap. Since you got D, full form, you're going to continue on here. So you'll talk about this light, which I would tell you to talk about that anyway. Turn signal, full-way flasher, marker light. Left, if they want to know. Amber in color, security mounted, not cracked or broken, right? So now I want to check my door though for damage, such as cracks, holes, dents. Okay, no damage, but my mirror bracket is not broken or damaged, but it is securely mounted to my door with bolts. Okay, or door handle, yes, it makes open and close the door, that's good. But now I'm gonna check the hinges to make sure they allow me to operate properly. So that's opening it all the way. Okay? So I'll check the hinges. That's make sure they're bolted to the cab and the door. Nothing cracked, bent, or broken, right? Put my weather stripping or door seals, both on the cab and the door. Okay? It's rubber, so it shouldn't be cut or torn or frayed, but is secured or securely mounted, right? Okay, nothing wrong with it. Okay, so I'll close the door. These are called entry steps. They can be considered to go with your catwalking steps if you like, or just mention them separately. So entry steps, securely mounted with bolts, nothing cracked, bent, or broken, free of debris. Okay? You're going to your fuel area now. So we have a fuel tank. Should not be cracked, no dents, no holes, not leaking. You have two straps, two metal and rubber straps to keep it secured, and no metal to metal contact. Okay, so they're mounted to the frame, secured. Fuel cap, tight, not leaking. That's all we need on that. Okay. Your emergency equipment in here, you can talk about that at any time that you like during your pre-trip. Okay, whether you're doing that on the outside, whether you do it right before you do your in cap, even some of them do it when they come out and chalk the wheels, but you have to make sure you talk about it. If he wants to get out and look at it after he's in there, fine. If not, just tell him what you need to tell him. Okay, so there will be you'll have a fire extinguisher, okay, fully charged, securely mounted. I suggest you say pin intact, tag up to date, okay, just to cover yourself. Next is you'll hit the red box and tell them you have 3 reflective triangles that are red or amber in color, not broken or missing. You should have a bag, which someone took mine out already. Oh, there it is.
Way back there. I was here before you got started mine.
Okay. Should have a bag in there of bolts, fuses, and breakers. Not all of our trucks will have them in there because drivers decide they need them more than we do. Okay? Yes.
On your tag-free fire extinguisher, it has to be updated once a year. So as long as it's within that year period, it's up to date.
Should be good, yes. Okay, so those three things only. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to what's called the under frame area when they read the instructions off to you. So we have our catwalk and steps. Yes, they're both securely mounted to the frames with bolts, nothing cracked, bent, broke, loose or missing, and free of debris.
Hey sir, can you repeat what that area is called right there?
They call this the under vehicle part.
Okay.
Okay, that's what when they read the instructions to you. So listen to that. Okay, but it's basically from the trailer this way, right there. Okay. So we have the frame and cross members. Okay, yes, they're securely mounted with bolts, so they're not loose or missing. The frame is not cracked, bent, or broke, and I cannot cut, weld, or drill on the frame. Okay. We then have our drive shaft and U-joint. Okay, drive shaft and U-joint. Back here as well. Okay, so they're securely mounted with bolts. The drive shaft is not cracked, bent, or broke, or twisted. Free of debris. Okay, or foreign material. Okay, doesn't matter how you word it, just no junk and trash on there, right? Okay. Your exhaust pipe or exhaust system is right here. Okay. So it comes out to about right there. Okay. So exhaust pipe runs under the cab. It says to make sure it's securely mounted. Well, there's a clamp and bracket right here. That's what you're checking. Okay. Securely mounted, so I want to make sure there's no holes, dents, no signs of leaks such as soot or carbon. Okay, and they're both be black in color, so it won't matter. If anything black's down there, something's wrong, right? You got a leak of some kind somewhere. Okay, so that's the main thing. My torque rod, got one there as well. Okay, all right here. I don't care which one you talk about, but you'll tell me that one end is mounted securely to the differential, one end to the frame, not cracked, bent, or broke. Okay, so one end to the frame, one end to the differential, one end to the frame, one end to the differential, nothing cracked, bent, or broke. Okay, whichever one you choose. If you're here, you can talk about that, or if you're under the trailer and you see it, talk about it then too. Okay, just need to talk about one of them. Okay, my splash guard. Okay, security mounted with bolts and clamped to a bracket, right, to the frame. It covers the width of both tires. Does not touch the tire. Does not touch the ground. Not cracked, broken, or damaged. No more than half the height off the ground. Okay. They then will tell you you need to inspect one drive axle. Okay, so you can inspect this one here if you like, or that one there, right? Okay. I'm going to start with the suspension, and it doesn't matter. My spring mount is here. My spring mount is there for that axle. Airbag back this way for this axle. Okay. So I have a spring mount or spring hanger. Yes, securely mounted to the frame with bolts. It's not cracked or damaged. My control arm, that's the piece that looks like a leaf spring. That's this piece right there, right? That's my control arm right there. Okay. Looks like a leaf spring, but it's not. They want it as a control arm because it operates differently. But it's mounted to the hanger with bolts. There's a bushing there. It's not damaged or missing. The control arm itself, not cracked, not bent, not broken, not missing, right? 2 U-bolts. Okay, same as on the front axle, right? They're not loose, they're not missing, they're not cracked or broken. They're secured because their nuts and bolts are tight. So that's why it's not loose or missing, right? Shock absorber. Mounted top and bottom with bolts, not bent, dented, or leaking. Okay. Airbag. Mounted top and bottom with bolts, no cuts, bulges, abrasions, or leaks. No air leaks, if you want to be specific. Okay. Your brakes. I don't know what's the best way. Okay, well, I'm just going to do it all here. You'll see, I can show you a little bit there. So you have air lines right here. You have air lines that are right here. Okay. You have your brake chamber and clamps. Brake chamber and clamps. Okay. You have a slack adjuster with a push rod down there. You have a slack adjuster with a push rod down there. Okay. And you then have your brake linings right there and your brake drums. So brake linings are right here and the brake drum. Okay. So you'll start with the hoses, right? So fittings are tight, no cuts, bulges, abrasions, or leaks. Brake chamber and clamps, securely mounted with bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken, and the clamps are not loose or missing and not leaking. My push rod and slack adjuster. Well, slack adjuster and push rod actually, the other way around. No loose or missing mounting parts. No more than 1 inch of free play or travel when released. Okay. At which point you'll talk about your brake lining. Okay. Right there. Or right here. Okay. Brake lining, remember, not worn excessively thin. Not worn dangerously thin or no less than 1/4 inch, right? Your brake drum. Okay. We talked about that, so that's going to be not cracked, bent, or broken, no loose or missing bolts, and free of debris, grease, and oil. Just like we did with the rotor on the disc brakes. What we did was change our name. Okay? So we're going to work our way out some more. So now we're going to check both tires because we're checking dual wheels. Okay, so both tires, sidewall, 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 tread. Right? No cuts, bulges, abrasions. Tread's evenly worn. Tread depth is no less than 2/32, or minimum 2/32, right? I would check both tires at the valve stem with the tire gauge no less than 100 psi or within factory specs. Right? My budge space or spacing, it doesn't matter which phrase you use, same thing's the same. I'm checking to make sure there's no gap between the two rims. Okay, so there's no gap there, but I have no debris between my rims and my tires. Okay, so that's what you're checking for. No gap between the rims, no debris between the rims and tires. Okay, I'm going to then check my rims, both in here and out here, where nothing cracked, bent, broken, no welds. Right, we'll check both of them.